Well, in typical Stephanie fashion, I have no idea where this video has started or ended so far. So we're starting over again just in case I mucked up. But it is shearing season. We have been working on this for about a week now, and it is getting intense. Babies are starting to arrive and we need to get everybody shorn. So let's go through the process that we use. So it probably seems a little bit ridiculous, but this is my setup. I bring in the floor lamp from our living room, put it up so I've got some good overhead lighting in here, and we have our milk stand right in the stall. I am loving using the milk stand, and you're going to see some footage here from earlier this week when we first started using it, and it is amazing. I use old-fashioned scissor method. They're shears still, but they're the scissor method in my opinion, and it's a bit of a long-winded process, and I'll tell you, it's sure nice to have them in this stand where really, they calm down quickly. I can give them a bit of grain, and they are happy sheep, and I'm a happy shearer. All right, so up to this point, we have shorn, sheared. I always get that wrong, and I always mean to look it up and see exactly what the proper terminology is, but I'm going to go with sheared. We have sheared all the sheep that are used to the stand. Now comes the fun part of teaching these younger girls how to use the stand. All right, so I'm aiming for this white Winnie here. She is the only one that I have no idea when her due date is, and I'd really like to get my hands on and have a peek. And she needs that fleece gone. So, hopefully, she hasn't been handled a lot. Settle down. This is why I really like horned sheep. Settle down. No. You're feisty. You're feisty. Okay. All right. I'm going to just put the lead rope on around her neck like we usually do. There we go. So she's caught. Now the next part is, will we get her on the stand? Here we go. Whoop, 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 whoop. Here we go. All right. Moment of truth. Can we get her up there? I gotta go up. You've seen the others do it. Good girl. Now I'm gonna get my cameraman to put in some feed, and we'll see if she sticks her head through. Freya. Too many sheep in the stall. That's a girl. No. We're not going to rush her. We're just going to let her figure it out. Wow, this sheep has a lot of fleece. No. Nope. Okay, girl. There we go. Put it in there. She's got to turn her head. I'm going to take off the lead rope so she's got a little bit more neck space. She has a lot of fur, and it is just a big mat right there. So that's where we're going to start. I would like her to relax and start to eat her grain first. Not bad for her first time. I'm just standing behind her. I'm not pushing her or forcing her or anything. I'm just keeping her from backing up and pulling on this here with her neck until she relaxes. This is crazy thick, and what a mat. Not at all usable for pretty much anything other than garden mulch on top here, but she'll be so happy to have this off. I'll get Chris to zoom in 1 second here so you can see just how thick this mat is. Oh, the shears barely even want to cut this. But once again, we're going straight down that back, getting a line to work from, and we'll see what we can salvage. All right, we are down this center line. I'm really just trying to cut off the mat at this point. And then we'll get to these sides here, which this here is very usable and gorgeous. But this up top is a total write-off. But that happens quite often because that's the part that felts in the weather. I was just saying to Chris, this is tough going. This mat is tight to the skin and I don't want to upset her or nick her in any way, so we're just taking our time. The worst bit has to be where you get spots that are heavy in lanolin. It's just tough going for the shears. And I know I could switch to clippers, but this is where I'm comfortable, so. Oh, we're getting past it on this side. As I come over the shoulder, we're getting down to where it's not so bad. Another thing we are trying to do is if we get any second cuts while we're in this process, it's great because I can just pluck them out. I try not to. It's like, for example, when I was cutting off that thicker mat part, you can see here, there's a lot of extra there. I didn't get it very well and close to the skin because it just was difficult. So this is something where I'd come back and just cut it out later because I don't want to risk having second cuts in my good fleece for spinning. So we just come back, usually at the end once I've got her all sheared, but I just wanted to kind of go through this process while we were here with the camera. But then that way you don't have that extra clump of hair for her all summer.
Those little bits you're seeing Stephanie throw over the edge there, that's the second cuts that she's taking off and avoiding getting into the fleece that she's going to process later.
Thank you.
It actually looks pretty funny right now because it looks like you're
buried in her?
in underneath her skin. Yeah.
No. So, if I put that flat again, you can see here I've already taken off that matted back on the one side. Now I've got this to the point that I think everything else is going to be usable from this point on. So I'm going to do the same thing I did on that side and just keep pulling off until I get to where I really can't pull it apart anymore because that's just going to be too felted to really bother. Not to mention, it is pretty dirty and full of oils and lanolin. So at this point, I can't process fleece. At this point, I can't process the fleece fast enough to use it all anyways. So there's no point in trying to use the stuff that's not 100% great. This is crazy, crazy here. So matted. Let's see if I can cut a bit more of a thingy here. Give me some leverage. Oh, nope. That is some thick stuff. There we go. Now it should go. There we are. The stuff up around her neck is going to be interesting. There we go. So it's not a huge section, but it would have made a really nice like horse saddle pad or something, or a seat. But for now, it's going to be mulch. So now that we've got that middle section out of the way, it's pretty much smooth sailing. We're just watching again for those second cuts. It does happen. You can see parts here where I could come back and cut a little closer. She does have a bit of a break, so sometimes when I pull, it is coming out pretty close to the skin. But for the most part, we're going to keep her comfortable by cutting it because she's not broke enough to pull it all out and rue.
Well, she's not 100% comfortable with this process because this is really the first time she's been up on the stand and sort of had this kind of, she's been sheared before, but not up on the stand. But at the same time, one thing we definitely find with the Icelandics, at least in our experience, for what that's worth, is they seem to do a lot better with shearing if you leave them standing. They do not like being flipped and put up a pretty good fight. So I'm going to say it, she's being pretty calm considering. And at this point, we have two more. Yeah, you're coming right over. Too close. Too close to focus on. So that's Precious, right?
Yep.
So this is Precious. So she's up for tomorrow to get sheared because, as you can see, she's got a lot of fleece on there. Hers actually looks a little better. I don't know. She probably won't let me touch it, but it doesn't look like it's matted quite the same on the back. You see these girls already had their haircut for the spring.
All right, well, we're approaching the butt end of the sheep, and this is an area that quite often they do not love, but you really want to be careful that you don't nick that tail on them because that's very unpleasant. But you can see we've got it nicely cleaned up. And we're now going to work down either side. You're going to have quite a big swath that is really gross and just not salvageable. And then we're going to try and get the rest of the side off in as much of one piece as we can.
So one thing that I think is important or worth talking about here is she actually cleaned up really well on the back end. And even though sort of the outer hairs are definitely stained, for lack of a better way to put it, it's not like she had any issue sort of down to the skin or, well, it's been cool, no fly strike or any of that sort of thing. So she was still in good shape. She was just kind of gross on the outside.
Well, it is definitely coming off quite well. We're starting to get quite a bit of weight here, and it is pulling on her skin a little bit. So I think as much as I'd like to get it off in one piece, I'm almost to the point I'm going to now pull this bit off and we'll bag it and start the next line, I think. She's being a very good girl for her first round in the stand, getting this done. Gosh, she has so much hair. Wow. But it is gorgeous and relatively clean. Oh boy. All right, so I just pulled off that lower section here that we were working on, and we're basically to the part that most people talk about, skirting. And one of the nice things is, while I'm slowly bonding with my sheep and doing this slow process of shearing, which I have to admit I enjoy, even though so many people say, oh my gosh, it takes you so long. We're now coming to that point where rather than stuff this in the bag, I'm just going to skirt it right now before I even put it in. So anything that has that real bad, I said that, dirt and oil and grease and guck from them lying on it comes off now before it gets into the bag. There's some more here. You can see this was her back end. This whole section here. Oh. So I know it does appear that I'm having a really hard time with this. And the one thing I'm going to say after years now of cleaning Icelandic fleece, that is the lanolin, that is the oils, that is the dirt. And this is why I do not spin Icelandic in the grease, because it is so hard to pull apart. But trust me, and I'll try and make a note of this or show you in a future video or post. But once we scour this and wash that out, this will pull apart very, very easily. It is, for an Icelandic fleece, this is not felted. It is just unbelievably thick. So the one thing I'm going to talk about right now before we really kind of switch to the other side is, so many people have asked me, how do you do the stomachs? And previously I sat on the floor to get underneath. The stand just changes the game, because now they're at that height that I can get underneath and I can clip off what needs to be clipped, and it goes super smooth and super well, and the sheep don't get upset either. So I'll show you this belly once we get it cleaned up, and hopefully we'll see how far along she is by the udder development. All right, girl, I'm gonna go and do the other side here as quick as possible.
While she's still getting sheared, most of the rest of them have eaten their fill and just waiting to be let back out.
Well, we're making decent progress down the second side. I always find second side is so much faster than the first. I don't know why. It just goes that way. All right, we're going to peel off this side. We're getting a lot, as you can see, hanging here. I still have a little bit of that bum stuff. That's still going to have to be taken off, but I'm getting late in the day and she's getting tired of being on here. We're probably about an hour and 15 minutes in. Like I said, I like to take my time with it. It's kind of a bonding experience. It's never, what's the word? A traumatic for them. It's just a easy, well, I get to stand in the stand and I get to eat some pellets and, you know, all in all, we both win. Holy cow, I can't get this off here. I'm gonna have to cut more. That is some crazy fleece. Hi, girl. We're getting there, aren't we, Win? Hey, aren't we? Every year we say this, the more you work with them, the better and better they get. It's almost like having goats. Chris even said it earlier today. And believe me, 2 years ago, Chris hated the sheep. But as we wean out the ones that were problematic from before and keep those young ones that are just getting friendlier and friendlier and more used to us handling, and we're getting smarter. We're learning. Use a stand. Use some chutes. Make life simpler. And boy, oh boy, it's making a difference to how we feel about being sheep farmers. So we're basically done. Now we have to take her head out of the headpiece here and really do up that neck. So she's going to have a hard time standing, and I have a feeling I'm going to have Chris's help. So we may not film a whole lot about this, but we'll get it off and we'll bring you back and show you the finished product. So you can see we've just backed her up out of the stand and we're just getting this all off. And you know what? It did not take her more than, 20 seconds to realize that it felt good to get this all cut off. She's standing quite well for us now, but she fought it at first. But it's going quite quick, and then we'll get her off this stand and she'll be a happy girl. All right. Well, it's pitch black outside. It's dark in the barn. I apologize if this video is not going super great, but she is finished. All amazing. I'm going to show you now that clip of her tummy and how well that turned out, being able to do it up on the stand. Winnie really was an amazing girl for her first time up here, and she's only been shorn once before when she was a lamb, so I think it's going to have a lot of potential for her to be a good milk sheep, provided that milk comes in for us. But we're going to end this video just with a quick talk about the fact that, so we had a look, Winnie's udders have not developed yet. Definitely a baby in there, but I think we're probably still a good 3 weeks off. But I'm glad that I got it done because I really had no clue, because with all that fur, I couldn't even tell how big she was. But it's looking probably like a single and probably not for a couple more weeks.